If we're going to look at the books on the shelves behind me, we might be surprised at how different the definition of concussion is in those books from what it is out in the real world today. For example, if I went back and I got this book, Principles of Neurology, which is a book, probably one of the most owned book by neurologists, Principles of Neurology, Raymond Adams, Maurice Victor, Alan Roper. In this book, if we were to go to the back and look up concussion, and I probably have this tab because I have these various areas that I thought important in the past. But this book is a book that you're going to find on neurologist shelves. In this book, they're going to tell you that you can't have a mild brain injury, you can't have a concussion without a loss of consciousness. That, frankly, is wrong. But this book has been restating that same basic principle since it was initially published. The original publication of this book goes back to 1977, and the copy I have in my hand is a 1997 book. That is not the current thinking about concussion, but it is the thinking of a far greater percentage of neurologists than should in fact be the case. The definition of concussion really started to change about 1992. I'm sure there was significant research before that. They started researching things like diffuse axonal injury, now coming under a different name, multifocal axonal injury. But they started researching that really into the 80s. If I were going to pull off another book from my shelf, this Greenfield's Neuropathology up on the corner, you would find in that book that they're now beginning to understand that brain injury occurs even if it isn't on the level that you can see the swelling and the other types of injuries. There can actually be an injury to the axon. But in about 1992, there was something called the American Congress of Rehabilitation Medicine's definition of mild traumatic brain injury. And in that definition, they abandoned the absolute requirement that you had to have a loss of consciousness to be diagnosed with a brain injury, and they came up with 4 different alternative, what I call in my webpage, acute events. And those acute events were loss of consciousness, a change in mental state, amnesia, and focal neurological deficits. The only one of those that really adds a significant amount to the diagnostic picture is amnesia. But again, because amnesia is one of those things that doesn't have a true objective measure and something that is not particularly sensitive to be identified in emergency rooms, amnesia has not helped us define mild brain injury in the cases where people are long-term disabled as much as it should.